It is Friday. Got to get down on Friday. Got to get ready for the weekend. But before we get there, we are here with some games for NLC Div 2. I am J-Real. This is Black Bloxer. Welcome in. How are you doing at the end of the week?
So good. It's been a really good week of League of Legends until the Spectator broke, but whatever, that's not affecting us right here. So excited to cap it all off with some NLC Div 2. We've got two really exciting games, so can't wait to get into it.
And this might as well be NLC Happy Hour, right? Because it is time for two games, two solid wins, and some very high contention stakes, especially in the later series. But the first one that we got to kick it off with is Garnet Gaming versus Karanana. Apologies if I did say the name wrong. I'm going to call them K5 for the rest of the stream for said reasons. But these two teams, I feel like, are kind of in the mix-up, right? I feel like K5, they've not had the best start to the season. They're 2-7. They're starting to make their way up the table, but this is where it has to begin, right? They beat G2 yesterday. Can they pick up another win against GG today, Bloxer?
I think so. I mean, Garden Gaming, they have been pretty strong. They're currently sat on the edge of playoff contention, 4 and 5. It's not a terrible spot for them to be in. If they keep winning, they should be able to sneak into playoffs. And once you get to playoffs, anything goes. That's the point at which you can really turn things on. You're no longer trying to scrape together wins just about to get into that W column. Getting out of best of ones as well can really help some teams. But at the same time, this K5 roster is looking quite nice all of a sudden. They've made a couple of changes. We've now got Floops and Nodu-chan in the bot lane, and that's a bot lane that's done stuff together before, and I've always been really impressed with whenever I've seen them in other leagues. So it's really exciting to see that change being made. The only thing with that is, yeah, it is K5. They've lost their first 3 bans in all of the games because that was a late swap for them. So that's a really tricky barrier to overcome.
No, indeed. And I feel like Garden Gaming, obviously, they've had a bit of a tough time, as you said. They're 4 and 5. They've kind of, for me, it feels like it basically all comes in the third game. That first 10 minutes, that first 15 minutes, if they get ahead, they've shown that they can really be a powerful team, one that is hard to reckon with, right? But then they also have shown a little bit of problems when it comes to them being behind. Now, in the head-to-head, they did beat K5 before, so is it going to be a return of the Mac? Is it going to be the same score like we once saw? We'll find out as we do get into pick and bans, right? We are going to see... I feel like
those are the wrong.
Okay, the logos are the other way around. Okay, that's why we're not seeing bans on the left side. But Senna gonna be the first ban there. Any particular picks that you kind of want to see banned on 14.4? Obviously, new patch, new day. Any new flavors?
The things that were strong kind of are still sitting in really big positions. I mean, the Smolder is the only thing that's really been tuned down a little bit. He's still just as strong if you get super late into the game, but in the early mid-game, that's the point at which he was kind of taking over games all of a sudden. He's now has his power spike pushed back by quite a significant margin. So that's something you maybe don't need to worry about so much. But I think we're still going to be seeing the same kind of things. Cassante, Ornn, they're still the premier picks in the top lane. If you want to get spicier, the Gwen's still looking really strong up there. Mid lane is a lot of the same. I wonder if we're still going to see the TF. It hasn't been moved around too much, but at the same time, are people adapting to it? Because I've been seeing it in basically every lane, and if you can't play it, it feels like a massive disadvantage you're putting your team under, because you can't have that map mobility that the TF seems to really be unlocking for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Malawi in solo queue. I had to play against a TF top the other day, and like, I know my champion is annoying to deal with, but like, hey yo, get that out of here, man. Get ADTF out of here, man. What is that?
Yeah, absolutely. It is truly a disgusting pickup. I mean, the Alawi is a little overtuned right now, I'd say, but
just good enough.
Insane. Varus, standard lock-in. We've been seeing that, and just a massive amount at the moment. I'm not expecting us to see anything too wild in the bot lane. We do get to see quite a lot of the AP carries down there, of some of the Karmas, the Seraphine, so that is a potential pickup. When you're into this Varus, though, you really don't want to pick anything particularly short range. You want the poke. I've seen Caitlyn being picked a couple of times. I'm not really sure if that's something that MKL particularly wants to play. I think right now you would like to just pick yourself up a jungler and an ADC for Garden Gaming, and then try to build your composition around that.
They play things like Ezreal. They've also played Draven. I'm kind of interested to see if we see a bit more Draven, because obviously that early game prowess, the potential that you can have with that. But I believe we are actually going to get the Smolder coming in, so we'll be expecting that to be in the bot side. But you never know. We might see that in the mid as well. I think there is some playability. People also be playing it top sometimes, but not professionally, just in solo queue. And I won't lie, it's not good. It's not good.
you kind of need a support, I think, for Smolder to keep you alive, because he is very useless in the early game. I think the Nautilus is a great pairing for it. You've got a lot of CC to lock down early to keep the Smolder safe, and then later on into the game, you can use that CC to then be the aggressor to try to get involved in these team fights. Nautilus is also just a great front line for the majority of your team. But yeah, this Smolder is no longer as strong in the early to mid game, so you need to be careful of that as Garden Gaming. It's still good, but yeah, it's not going to be able to take over games quite as quickly, and the Virus is going to be able to poke out the Smolder very effectively early on. I was going to say maybe you want to pair this up with a Karma, something with a lot of long-range poke to just make the Smolder's life as miserable as possible. And instead going to head towards this Thresh. Now you've got the option of going towards the jungle or the mid lane, the Orianna, the Azir, all of these basic champions, Corkis. All of these are still absolutely fine to pick up. I think the Orianna is perfectly good to get yourself blind, works pretty well with a Varus as well, but you know, we'll see what Wantage actually wants to go towards.
You know, I'm a big fan of the Thresh here, right? Because obviously you have a lot of potential to kind of play around the Nautilus. I think the only pick I would have maybe preferred is Braum, just because of how good Braum is into both Smolder and Nautilus. But at the end of the day, I think Thresh works. It allows your immobile ADC a little bit of escape. And now they got the Xin Xiao to add that early pressure to potentially really pinch this Smolder out.
Yeah. And with that Xin Zhao, you've got a lot more early game prio too. You can get into the spot lane really effectively with that Lantern. But you are on a timer. You're on a significant timer now. You've gone with an early game jungler alongside a Smolder on the other team. You don't get to play this game if it goes late. That's not going to go in your favor as K5. Whereas Garden Gaming, every pick they have right now is both good early and works well for them later on. This Viego, if you can get a lead, is excellent, but I don't feel like Viego ever falls off. He's still going to be relevant. If you can get that first kill in the team fight, take over that body, going to be excellent as well. We still need to see some top laners as well as the mid laners. Who are you going to have as your counter pick? Do you want that to be onto Fat Shield or onto Ericsson for Garden Gaming? Because I've seen a lot of blind pick mid lanes be fine, whereas I think blind picking top lane all of a sudden is that much riskier. I think the counter pick in top lane is perhaps more important at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you, right? I think the counter picking top it goes pretty crazy, especially considering you don't get as much jungle attention, whereas mid obviously has a little bit more interaction from both support and jungle. But also, there's still a lot of safe mid lane picks. Upright, we still have the Corki, we still have the Tristana, we still have the Ori available. So there's still a lot of picks I feel like could come in and not really cause that many problems for the side of Garden Gaming, and similar for K5 as well. So it is a sentiment for me where it's like, if you are GG, save that top side pick, get something a little bit explosive, and then really run the game. Because at the moment, as you said, they've set up a lot for the bot side, right? They've got that late game scaling, but we kind of need those earlier components to allow the team to flourish. And I feel like if you get that in the top side and you can be dominant from early, you can really set the pace of the game.
That's a Draven.
Yeah, I'm also... Yeah.
That's a Draven ban. So is that K5 telling us that they've seen some solo queue, there's some cooking going on, and maybe Ericsson wants this Smolder? That's what that's telling me, because otherwise you're banning the Draven for no reason, and K5 do not have the bans to be wasting, so that is really interesting. Potentially trying to push the Smolder into the bot lane. I think that's definitely where you want it to be as K5. With that Karma locked in, I mean, I think that's a great pickup. It's super flexible. You can put it into the mid, the top, or mid or the top lane. You don't really want to put it support because Nautilus isn't great anywhere else, but it's also just going to give so many shields over. Karma is still overtuned. I think she's in a much better spot than she was a couple patches ago, where you just couldn't avoid the Karma, but the shields, the heal, all of that speed up as well, it's kind of perfect for positioning in a fight as a Viego or as a Smolder. K5 need to win this game immediately. I know that Yone scales into the late game, but if you're not winning those early on fights, this game becomes pretty much unplayable for K5.
I would say Yone is up there, right, as one of my favorite champions to watch and commentate on, but my least favorite to play on. I permaban this champion. Yeah. I think they are crazy. So if the Yone gets fed, you know, it could be time for bed for Garden Gaming. That's all I'm saying. But Swain going to be locked in there. I like it. It's very strong. It can hold out in terms of Karma shielding. It can also heal himself. He can kind of stay in the fight a little bit longer and does have that threat. I will say, it does feel like they don't have loads and loads of bursts. They've got a lot of kind of continuous fight, which could be a little bit risky against things like the Viego, right? If they can't just pick up the kill onto them, then they're going to have some troubles, especially with the shielding and talking about things that last a very long time and do a lot of damage. Aatrox in the top lane. Let's go, Fat Shield.
Oh man, Jay, I hope that your lungs are feeling good because yeah, these team fights could go incredibly long with so much healing. If you're not getting anti-heal immediately, and I don't want it on the tanks, I want anti-heal onto these ADCs as quickly as possible, otherwise, yeah,
We're getting
that's...
Swain top.
Yeah. I haven't seen Swain top in a incredibly long time. I think the actual last competitive Swain top I saw was when Whippo picked it up at Worlds like 2018. Like that's the last time I remember a Swain top in competitive.
Like, I guess if we're looking lore-wise, it makes sense. You know, demonic
Yeah.
ascension to take
Yeah.
on the demon Aatrox. I get it. Do I think it's a good pick? I don't know. I don't know about this one. I'm not sold on it. I will say the setup for the Xin Zhao to the top side would be very nice. It gives them a lot of potential. Also, it's going to be hard for Aatrox to itemize. If they want any sort of kind of resistances, they have to build that AD AP mix, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't going to be good for them. Obviously, they want to just go full damage. They want to essentially just kind of tear it up and not have to worry too much about defending themselves. Also, the range advantage of Swain. I feel like this could actually be a pretty nice pickup for K5, right? However, if this Swain starts to get behind, I feel like the Aatrox is going to just do Aatrox things.
You've got to be really careful to use that spacing and that range versus melee advantage to the fullest extent, because if you do step up too close, you're just going to get run down pretty much immediately. The reason that Swain top fell out of fashion was because you just couldn't keep up in lanes. The meta moved away to the point where you weren't having enough mana in the top lane, you didn't have enough health to just sit in these long extended team fights, and the way that they changed Swain's ult around meant that it's great when you're amongst many people and you're fighting in a big team fight, but in straight up 1v1s in the top lane, it just was not as effective, and the Swain just was better in the mid lane where you could then roam it up to get towards the Herald, down to get towards the Drake. It's a much safer place for it to be, but that doesn't mean that you can't still make it work up in the top lane. You just have to be really careful to play it properly. And that does mean that our mid lane matchup all of a sudden is that much more interesting too. I think that these are fascinating team comps.
I was like scratching my head a bit because I was like, okay, Swain, Aatrox, they've gone top lane. I'm like, okay, boom, top lane brain engage. But then I was like, wait, that means that you've put a Karma against a Yone, right? Or a Yone against a Karma, I should say. And I don't know if that feels that good. You know, I'm not going to lie. Like, I feel like Karma is quite oppressive, especially to range people anyway, let alone melee. So I feel like Yone is going to have to be able to get a lot of potential early on. Otherwise, they could be in a lot of trouble. And I'm really wondering now how we're going to see K5 play this, right? Because if you're a Frush, I feel like there's a lot of lanes that need ganking, and you've only got one person that you can be on the map, right? You can't split yourself up. You can't gank two lanes at once. So where are you going to go?
I think if you really just want to get things rolling, you got to get yourself up into the top lane as quickly as possible to just try to get a kill onto the Aatrox, slow that game down, and then bot lane. I want to see a lot of fighting in the bot lane because you've got to make this bot lane work for you as much as possible. If you let Smolder get going, things are bad.
I want to see it. You want to see it. People at home want to see it. They're already putting press the button, casters. Get into game. Let's do it. Button pressed. Game on. Here we go, Bloxer. Game one on our Friday series. And, kicking off with an Infernal Drake as well.
Oh, yeah. This is nice. This is the way that I want to be spending my Friday. Talking about League of Legends and probably not saying much in long extended team fights where you just have to keep talking for a very, very long period of time. So as we jump on to the Rift, you are absolutely right. Afresh has got a lot of lanes to gank, whereas Bash is in a much calmer position, is able to just sit back a little bit. You still want to be proactive. If you can get to the top lane and get this Aatrox going, awesome, fantastic. But if not, the Aatrox should be fine in this matchup. The Karma you pick pretty much to be able to just take a lane and stabilize it. I don't think she's as overtuned as she was to the point where, you know, it was the pick to take over a lane. I think you now are picking the Karma once again to just, this lane is going to be neutral. You're not allowed to get too aggressive. And how much do you really want to gank a Smolder early? The Smolder doesn't really give you anything, so, you know, potentially not the way you do want to be going. There's so much more pressure on Afresh here.
But there's also the question mark for me of like, okay, maybe you're not going to be ganking the Karma. Maybe you're not going to be crushing over the mid lane. But you're going to have a really good 2v2. Because once you get level 6 especially, the Viego Karma combination could absolutely smoke Jin Yone if they are even, right? Obviously,
Absolutely.
there's questionable things. You've got to think about who's going to hit skill shots, who's going to miss, blah, blah, blah. All of those things could go in. But Viego, the biggest problem is if you don't burst him, he can just keep going, right? He can turn into someone else, he can come back, he can do this, and Karma Kid with the shields just gives so much potential for that. And I'm a little bit like, how is Yone Jin going to deal with that if they are going even or even slightly behind in this 2v2? And it makes me have the question of, okay, Grubs, Dragons, both going to be important. We've already talked about how the top side of the map could be quite impactful. Are we expecting a lot more play towards Grubs this time, or is it going to be a split for you?
I think that the Grubs might end up being a false narrative, to be honest, for Afresh. It's good to get them, but I think honestly being able to get some early Drakes is more important. I think in the straight up, all lanes being even, getting that first Drake and just conceding those first set of Grubs is probably the way to go, because you can get collapsed upon so quickly, and Aatrox added into that mix that you were saying with the Viego Karma, that's not any fun. You don't want to give over all 6, of course you don't.
Oh no.
Getting that first 3 maybe is less impactful. I think going for 3 for 3 on these Grubs is absolutely fine.
I'm also thinking it depends how they want to play, right? Because if we're seeing K5 and they're like, you know what, our aim is actually to go 4-1, have Wantage in the side lane. Starduster, you need to be careful, man. You're taking a lot of these Darkened Blades, and that is half HP, or we haven't even started laning phase.
Yeah, I mean, what were we saying? That the Swain should be able to use that range versus melee advantage, but you gotta space it correctly? Well, that was not spacing it correctly, and Stardust is all of a sudden in the position where he's just going to get shoved around right now. I don't think Fatshield wants to push this lane in, particularly unless he really desperately wants a Cheetah's Recall. Instead, as Fatshield, you just want to keep this lane going for as long as possible, because it's only with a couple of items, the Rylai specifically, I think, for Starduster, that you can most effectively play around these, not just laning phases, but team fights too. So you just want to keep this Swain here and heal up as much as you can. There's a lot of healing in this top lane anyway, and so it might come down to which jungler ends up there first. Bash is making his way topside.
Level 2 early for K5. Going to put that pressure on MKL. And Mikkel going to have to just step back. Nodu, a little bit scary with that level 2. And obviously, Garden Gaming, they got to be respectful of that bot side, right? We talked about how prominent Varus has been. There's a reason. It is such a strong pick at the moment.
It really is. It's so versatile as well. It entirely depends which build you go towards. This looks like we are going to get the on-hit version, which I must profess I'm not the biggest fan of. I think on-hit is not the best way to play him, as hang on, we're seeing just massive damage topside.
Yeah, Starduster actually does trade pretty nicely back with Fatshield, I will say, but again, the healing aspect, right, it's a little bit more in the long term, I think, favored towards Aatrox, if he can kind of stay away from that poke. We're talking about favored bot lane. They've gone aggressive again, but this time Garden Gaming getting the better side of the trade, and Nodu burning them pots, going pretty low, already having to use both summoners as well. So we might see a little bit of potential jungle action coming down from that side, especially if you're GG.
Yeah, do you want to dive this as K5? You've got a very low MKL that you could potentially go for. I think it would be far too much of a risk, though, not when there's a Nautilus around. Topside, this split doesn't really seem to be benefiting particularly onto Bash. You don't really have the ability to get a gank off right now. There is good vision. Whereas there is a potential for Afresh to get something going right now. They're just going to trade Scuttle Crabs. Bash is just going to go in. Starduster knows this is happening. Doesn't have a flash. Does have a ghost.
Does have ghost. He's going to proc it. I think a little bit of damage will go down, but nothing too worrisome. And obviously with this massive wave as well, Fatshield not going to want to give up too much of this, because the XP is going to be a game changer. As Afresh now in that mid side, Wantage trying to get aggressive here, doesn't get the knock up though. And I think again, oh, Ericsson actually having to flash there. A pretty nice one for the side of K5 as a overstay.
Yeah, I said it didn't look like it was going to benefit Bash too much in that situation, and it really shouldn't have. That was definitely an overstay from Starduster, and this has just been a bit of a horror of an early game, right? You get chunked out massively during the early stages of the game, and then 4.5 minutes in, you just get ganked and killed. That kill also goes over to the Aatrox, so Fatshield getting back to lane in a really strong position whenever he manages to really take advantage of this lane. You can look back at this moment and go, this is where things went wrong, but it's not over yet. You know, this Aatrox hasn't gotten to the point where he's completely unplayable. You just have to be extra careful, but I feel like I keep saying that from Starduster. Just don't step up too far, and we keep seeing it.
And let's part on the problems while we're at it, right? He lost TP in that first place. I had to walk all the way back to lane. Now down in levels. Plus, also could have potentially got frozen on, but I think Fat Shield has pushed it a little bit too much. So it's a rough time up there for Stardust, especially because Fat Shield's going to get 6 first. And I feel like that's an all-in if I've ever seen one. But in this bot side, right, let's have a little look at the Dragon, right? Let's have a look at Smolder. Mickle playing it up. I don't know if we can have a look at the stacks there. I don't know where to look for the stacks, to be honest. But either way, it's... Oh, I can't see it. It's just underneath the banner. But either way, we'll get to know a little bit later what stacks they're on. But it's a sentiment of, obviously, they're having a pretty good time, right? Down quite a bit of CS, though, I will say. Floops has managed to really eclipse them in that monetary department. We'll see if that plays out as a Frush. Going to go for those Scuttle, the Void Grubs, even. And should be able to pick up 3. You said 3-3 is a nice place to be.
Yeah, 3-3 is absolutely fine. I think for both of these teams, I would really love to get 6 onto Garden Gaming, but at the same time, I don't think overforcing for it is ever the right decision. This top side, you've kind of conceded the fact that your Aatrox is strong, but he just got a kill, got back to lane, isn't really back in the position to be able to push through quite yet. Not the right timing to go for it as Bash. I think the Bash does need to get this first Drake, but if you're able to get a first Drake and it's a Fire Drake as well, that is exceptionally useful. Just want to quickly hit on MKO on this Smolder as well. With the changes, 200 stacks is now weaker than it was before. 300 stacks is now stronger than it was before. So that's kind of the point at which we're kind of watching for these. It's going to be incredibly important to get as late as possible to get this Smolder going. But at the same time, if you're able to just win through your other lanes, that is certainly a way that you can play this game out. Garden Gaming, they've already got that big lead in the top side. It's only expanding. The gap in CS at this point is getting pretty huge, and it is just going to be a first Drake over to Bash and Garden Gaming, unless of course Afrosh wants to get involved in this one. He is in the area, but it would be very risky.
Yeah, but Sharo just... Man, I feel like Nautilus is one of the most imposing supports. Like, they just turn up and you're like, nah, I'm just going to leave this one. Because even if they're alone, right, they're quite long to kill. But also if they're with anyone, it is just so dangerous. So Sharo, they're getting a bit of placement. We'll already see a Frush. So now, if you are Garden Gaming, you understand junglers on the bot side. You can play accordingly. They already have Bash down there. And they also told Shin walking down. So now we might even get a gank in the mid lane. But I think Wantage is a little bit too far close to the tower. Although,
gonna go for it anyway.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we get the stun. The slows there. Good flush from Wantage will deny any sort of gank. But pushing that wave should open up for a dragon unless K5 can get this gank on bot.
That flash being down is going to be crucial. Wantage doesn't have flash or teleport, no sums in the mid lane, and you really need that flash on the Yone to be able to reposition in team fights. Once you've got that soul unbound, if you can't reposition effectively to get as much damage done, you're just going to end up snapping back or dying before you can do so. It really does hurt to be able to get onto the backline, and I think that it's going to be all about how many you can actually land of just those 3 strikes with the Yone. Do you get that knock-up? Because if you don't get that third knock-up, it puts you in a really tough position.
Okay, I thought for a second there they were going to send Wantage up to the top side because this is what we talk about. This is what we talk about, Bloxer. They're in a freeze. What can Stardust do? There isn't really anything at this point. So I don't know how they're going to kind of sort this one out. It looks like they're actually going to send Wantage up to the top side, which I don't know if it's going to make it better, but we'll have to find out sooner rather than later. As right now in the bot side, still prepping. Now they're going to send a bit of aggression here. Floop's trying to catch out Mickle, but a good cleanse will get them out.
Yeah, but that's now going to be down for quite a while, that cleanse. You're going to get that ult back up much, much sooner onto this virus, and you can just keep trying to get that play
This is brutal, man.
Yeah.
This is brutal.
It's fallen to pieces. 45 CS at 9 minutes into the game. It really sucks, and you don't particularly enjoy laning into the Karma either. And now as Wantage, you're just also being thrown to the wolves. I wonder if it would have been worth just straight up sacrificing this Swain. We messed up. Swain top's bad. There's a reason we haven't seen it since 2018 or something. Like, it's no longer the play. Instead, I feel like you're just kind of ruining the chances of 2 different champions now. Both Wantage and Stardust are in a bad spot. And I think more than anything with what's happening, what we're seeing, is that I want to see Afrosh getting ahead. Whenever I see a Jin's out, if you're behind, you are not useful once we get into the later stages of the game. You're barely able to hit knockups. You end up dying so quickly. And so, with your lanes losing, where do you gank? Where do you go? Your bot lane's constantly being pushed in, so maybe there?
And I think the question mark, right, is we talked about where should a Thrush go. Not here is the answer, first of all, because right now Bash is trying to get the kill onto them. Going to try and chase this one out, but they will be able to use Crescent Guard to get themselves to safety. But the question is this, right? If Fat Shield just keeps doing this, right? Because I believe this will happen again. I believe they will freeze again in the top side. You got to pick up the phone. You got to ring, ring, ring. Hello, Afrush, come gank my lane. Because I can't do anything. If you can't push it into the tower, you are stuck there forever. But we already talked about how that's going to be a bit of an L in terms of the win condition, right? Because they want Floops to get ahead. They would love Wantage to get ahead. And yeah, they just kind of got to say, you know what, Swain, it's over. And I am surprised that they're now sending the Yone up top. However, I will say, against the Karma, I don't feel like Yone is going to gain major advantages. Whereas if they do gank the Aatrox, Yone gets a kill. Maybe they can start evening out that fight.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the Starduster will be at least in a better position versus Ericsson than it was versus Fat Shield. It is going to be 3 for 3 on those grubs, and you're going to turn this around into a Drake as well. That's our first Drake coming down at 11 minutes into the game, so it's going to be quite a late soul point, even if one team just manages to get all 4. Pretty slow on the pickup, but Bash going to be happy enough to have picked up 3 of those grubs. Yeah, like I said right at the start, 3 for 3, not going to be the end of the world. So, right now, gold pretty even. You've got about 1,000 in advantage for Garden Gaming, and a lot of that is coming from the fact that you're just so far behind in both your mid and top lane. But of course, there is a massive CS gap in the bot lane. Floops is absolutely just got a gap over Mikkel.
Yeah, it's a pretty large differential, but if we look at the actual numbers, right, 800 up in the solo laners, it's about 400 in the mid, and then almost 1,000 over to the side of Fat Shield. And I like that they've swapped the lanes as well, right? Garden Gaming has said, you know what, we're gonna keep hindering you the whole laning phase. We're not gonna allow you out of this situation until we start to crack on these towers, and they're forcing Fat Shield to be against Starduster, but they are going to see one more rotation, and I do wonder, are they just going to straight rotate again? It looks like they are.
Yeah. Just keep moving around this Aatrox to whatever point you can put him at to be strongest, and then it feels like K5 just have to respond constantly. They're just moving this mid and top lane back and forth. Fat Shield gonna pop the ult just to be annoying. Afresh isn't gonna be able to smite that one away. Fat Shield might be in a bad spot.
Here we go, there's fate sealed, and now Fat Shield has lost the world, and they're gonna go down pretty easily. And I liked the aggression, I liked the play, I didn't love the ult pop, and the overstep gets them caught out.
Making Afrosh have to blow a smite, pushing him out of his jungle a little bit, fine, but your jungler had just gone back to base. You're not in a good spot to really fight there, as we see more aggression bot lane.
Here comes Mum, Mikkel trying to get a bit of damage. Now, not the most onto Floops, but enough to kind of ward them away, and obviously we've seen Chains of Corruption come out as well. So ultimate for ultimate, nothing to worry about, as Ericsson is having a pretty nice time against Wantage in this mid lane.
Things are going pretty well right now. Everybody on Garden Gaming, I think, is doing well for themselves. It was just a little bit of over-aggression top lane. You can understand it. Aatrox is incredibly strong at this point in the game. Stardust once again getting chunked down to half HP. And things might just keep getting worse, because this Aatrox has TP, is going to be able to split push and then come join the team. We've seen what an Aatrox on the flank can do. Absolutely disgusting. It's already got that first item completed as well, as we're actually seeing quite a lot of first items coming through, at least on the side of Garden Gaming. Not...
Oh,
okay.
Oh, wait, can we run that back? Can we see what happened there? Fat Shield going to live with that heal on that minion as well, so doesn't even trade kills, and Starduster once again put in the ground, sent back to base, and that's going to be more plates, more gold, more wins for Garden Gaming.
And that's just disgusting, and you really make up for the over-aggression from Fat Shield to get a solo kill right there, and it just proves that there really is nothing that Starduster can do in this lane, and that has such wide-ranging consequences on this game. If your top laner is not able to participate in the lane, you're going to be so far behind once you get to these team fights. Luckily, the Swain will always be semi-relevant in the team fight, because that ult just keeps him alive for so long, and does a good amount of ambient damage, can slow if you get yourself a Rylai's. All of those are good factors that...
Ooh, that's a root, that's a hook, that's a death sentence. Shiro gonna go down. And a really nice pick from Nodu there. A little bit of trading does come back from Mikkel, but nothing that is going to warn them away. And in the top side, we did talk about trading. Fat Shield just with Bash and Ericsson able to force back Afrush and Starduster. And we said Starduster might do better in a team fight, right, when there's multiple members, but this one ain't it. Here comes the World Ender, and Afrush could be in big trouble here.
Wait,
they have the Yone, but actually the damage is coming through crazy, and Fat Shield gets popped.
Yeah, you've got that initial item coming through, that Titanic already completed for Afrosh, and it means they're just able to do so much more damage than you're expecting. Bash is going to run right into Nodu, and they're going to try to get a kill onto him. Bash just going to have to a great catch.
No! Bash trying to get away, does manage to flash out. Wantage able to go over the wall. But Bash having to use so much to get away. Yeah. Now might even be looking to go back into the fight though, because Sharo is here. The hook lands from Nodu, but it's not going to be enough. Bash with all the damage, the shielding from Ericsson as well. Nodu is sentenced to his own death.
And that's going to be a messy, messy team fight. The Herald, in the end, does go over to Afrosh and K5. And they've managed to pull themselves back into a pretty good position in this game. I think the thing is, top lane is super strong. Fat Shield is in a great position in this straight-up 1v1. But the rest of the map is not quite so strong. This little dragon in the bot lane, it doesn't really participate in the game for the first 25 minutes minimum. That's the point at which all of a sudden you have to kind of respect the Smolder, but beyond that point, you're still waiting until at least 35 minutes for him to be able to execute onto people. Whereas, as of right now, the Yone and the Varus are both strong. So you have to play around this Aatrox more effectively. But unfortunately, every time Fat Shield pops that out and goes forwards, just is not tanky at the moment. This build is not giving that needed tankiness that it feels like the Aatrox misses from those old items.
Right now, I'm liking this from K5. I will say they've not had the best solo lanes, but they have moved around the maps really well. They've claimed a lot of objectives concisely, and their bot lane is still doing quite a lot, right? Still up 40 CS and 1 kill, so decent amount of gold lead for Floops. I do wonder though, where's the breaking point, right? When do we start to see Garden Gaming decide to step up and say, you know what, we're actually just going to take these objective fights 5v5?
I think that's the point at which the Baron is spawning, and you're 20 minutes at least into the game. They're still pushing forwards and getting themselves a lot of towers. This gold lead is still significant, but you're just not as far ahead as perhaps the first couple of minutes of that early game really suggested. But you don't need to be, because your composition does just scale way better into the late game. I think you're in a very good position as Bash, whereas Afrosh is really on a clock, has done okay in the early game, but hasn't gotten as many ganks as kills, as you really want. I mean,
Mikkel clean with the cleanse. Yeah. Shiro going to be able to get themselves out as well. Drags out, but maybe actually not, as they are chasing them down. Damage coming through. Flash will be out there, but Floops with the flash and the arrow will be able to pick up a kill. But Mikkel finds one back, and here comes the TP. Fat Shield now diving forwards with Ericsson. They're going to ward away K5. Not going to pick up any further kills. But the 1-for-1 for me doesn't feel worth for Floops.
No, it absolutely does not, because Mikkel getting that kill, that's exactly what you want as a Smolder. Early kills are huge because you scale anyway. You scale through just being in the game. Has now got that 100 stacks mark. So that's the point at which, you know, they're beginning to tickle. Not that strong. Hook does land again. Bash is here, though. Oh, this could have been a tower dive.
It could have been, but I will say I respect that they're not just sending it. They're not going to kind of go in. Obviously, a lot of CC is there for K5, and they bought some time as well. Starduster able to get a little bit of relief here, able to push this tower. I don't know if they will fully get this tower. I think the wave should allow them to be able to pick that one up. And that will bring them a little bit closer back into this game. So I feel like a little bit of a misplay there from Garden Gaming, overextending on the bot.
Yeah, just a little bit further than you really needed to step up, but I still think getting a kill onto your Smolder makes that play worthwhile. I'm really impressed with the way that Garden Game right now are rotating around the map and getting themselves a lot of towers, a lot of objectives. The gold lead still only about 1,000. Those 2 Drakes, though, on K5 are going to become crucial coming up, because you really don't want to be giving over Soul Point. This next Drake fight could turn into one of those big 5v5s that are really important, and I think that there's a couple of key ultis we're really going to have to be watching once we get to that team fight. For right now, it is just going to be this Rift Herald piloted into the tower.
I love the charge on the Rift Herald there. Afrouge able to collapse that mid tower. Fat Shield once again popping World Ender, trying to be a menace, but understanding they can't just jump into 4 members at the moment. So still keeping it safe. And right now, it does feel like, you know what, even K5 had a bit of a bad start. They're still making some ground back, right? Only 2k down in total. They've managed to start to get some tier 1 towers as well. They've evened up the tower total. And they are having a bit of presence on the map. So I'm feeling good for them. I'm just a little bit worried when we start to get those 5v5s.
Yeah, the 5v5s is the point at which K5's composition right now is in a good position. Later on, once the Smolder is actually online, actually dealing a ton of damage, has those executes available, perfect. Garden Gaming 5v5, I love it, I want to see it. Right now, though, not going to be as strong, but this is 5 members booking it towards the bot lane right now. This tower doesn't have that much health. Floops and Odu are on full, though.
We talked about the dive. This one definitely would have been a dive if they had stayed. So they take the smart choice and they back away from this one. Another tower to Garden Gaming. A little bit more gold in the pockets. And we are going to see that Baron finally spawn.
Yeah, this game feels like it's been going on a lot longer than 20 minutes, even though it's pretty low kill compared with the games that we get usually. But still, just the way that it's been played out, so much map movement, people getting into all of the lanes around. And I'm really impressed with Stardust, not for the way that the early game went, but for the recovery. Now is in a pretty strong position. It's got that Leandri, so going to be dealing a ton of AoE damage on that ult. You could just get into the middle and slow people up and just burn them down, stop a lot of that healing coming through. That's just going to be huge in these fights. It's going to be all about some big ultis. The mum off of Mickle. Where do you land that on? Did you get it across multiple members? That's going to be huge. And obviously, whenever there's a Yone in the game, what happens with the Fate Sealed? Does it land onto everybody? Because if so, if you can bundle everybody up into one place, that's the point at which you can turn around and get your damage laid down from your Xin Zhao and just firing arrows across from Floops.
Yeah, we've already seen Floops ready to be aggressive as well, so we're not going to be too worried about are they going to be able to get away easily. It's just whether the damage can actually come through and be enough, because Ericsson, it's something we haven't talked about too much, but has been able to do quite a lot, as now the hook lands. There's the healing, though, coming in from Aatrox, but the follow-up damage is enough, and K5 able to start stepping forward. The Demonic Ascension this time is causing big problems and allowing K5 to step forward again. GG will lose a couple of members there, and a couple crucial ones too. Bash going down as Dragon is up. However, Afrouche not on the map either.
Oh, no.
As the re-engage does come through. Mickle with the damage, not going to be enough to kill off Starduster. As a nice Lantern will get them to safety. As Nodu still looking for that hook. It feels like they're like, you know what? We still have Floops on pretty good HP. You got Mickle on low mana. They can keep aggressing this.
Oh,
and the hook does land. Is it going to be enough damage, though? Floops still having to be wary, and Ericsson back in the mixer means it's going to be that even bit harder to kill off any members as TP's coming in, but this could be, I was going to say, maybe a little bit too close to the side of K5.
That's going to be another flash hook landing.
Charo able to buffer that one, though, gets himself out with the dredge line, has now almost sending it in, but Nodu able to just about stay away. As the hooks, they're kind of putting it in from both sides blocks, though. We're seeing them go. Not enough landing, though, to finish off a fight.
Not quite. Both the junglers have been able to die and respawn, rejoin this fight. It's going to be a straight-up smite fight here, potentially. Afrosh going over the wall.
Oh, here he goes. But the Dragon is still kind of healthy. 2,000. Can they get it? It's not going to be a steal. Bash now with the 7-4, but here they go into the back line. And look at the healing. Bash Shield just not going down. Absolutely massive. And they're looking to take on their Swain this time. The healing is not enough. But Vantage wants to claim at least one bag. Looking for Bash. Will pick up that trophy, but will die for it. Floops the last alive. And here comes the world ender. Fat Shield. The problem is not going to be able to catch up to Floops.
Oh, just getting into the backline is Fat Shield, and that's what happens with an Aatrox. Sure, in the 1v1 was getting collapsed upon a couple of times, wasn't having the best time after a really good early game, but once you can get into the backline as an Aatrox in a big team fight and just keep landing those Qs, you heal for so much, and then, by God, do I hate the name, but that mum off of Mickle was gigantic. It landed across all 5 members and just dealt so much damage. This Molder is not even in a particularly strong position, or at least it wasn't until the start of that team fight. Now coming out of that, 2 items finished, and if we could get a check onto the stacks at some point, I think that we're going to be getting to the point, yeah, nearly at 200, which is where you need to start really respecting this Smolder.
Indeed. But I would love to see a replay, just because I want to see how much healing Fat Shield got in that fight, because they jumped in, took a lot of damage, and then just immediately came back to almost full HP, and also with the Karma Shields as well. It's just a menace. But K5, they were able to stand up in the fight before that, right? So there is ways for them to definitely fight. I think if Floops can get engaged, a little bit more damage down, then maybe they can start to turn it around. But obviously, if you are getting engaged on by the side of Garden Gaming, it's going to be pretty tough, especially on the back foot. But the next objective is going to be Baron. Although before that, I believe we got a bit of a fight going down in the bot side. Wantage being caught out by 2 members. going to be locked out here and has to go back to the soul. That's not where you want to go. God able to sidestep this one. Wantage now looking for the kill, gets one, and might be able to get away, actually.
No, he's got the tower. He's on the wrong side of the map. Whoa, Baron.
Oh, on the Baron, though. Mum going to come in, doing a bit of damage, but Sharo, the one taken down. Stardust are just holding the front line, not allowing Mikkel or Bash anywhere close to the Baron, but with that ultimate down, now still pondering, can they get over this wall? Bash does have the Heartbreaker, so can it jump in for a little bit of a burst? The steal is on the cards as Mikkel and Bat Shield now starting to walk in. The pressure is mounting, Afrush. Got to make sure you get this. Steal. They move in, and Bash will take that one. Now looking for the fight. Mikkel able to absolutely explode. The fire is burning K5, and they will be able to walk this one. Floops trying to get away. There's the engage. The Viego just way too strong for your ADC. And another fight, another win, and Baron buff to Guardian Gaming. It might be like their name says, GG.
Yeah, you can see the idea behind the play. Wantage of the bot lane gets a 2v1 and is able to stay alive for so long, kill Ericsson, keep Fat Shield down there forever. Perfect, head straight onto the Baron. But the amount of just time bought by Shiro, by Mikkel, by Bash, able to get around there. Sure, Shiro then goes down, but you buy enough time for Fat Shield to be able to walk all the way up from killing in the bot lane onto Wantage to that fight. And the second that Fat Shield is there, when the Baron is still relatively healthy, you're able to just get straight on top of that. And I think that that's one of the issues that we see with Floops on this on-hit Varus, is that you just don't have that long-range poke to keep champions away from the pit. Fat Shield gets hooked.
Gets hooked, but is it going to be enough? Because there's the instant world ender. They're ready to fight. They're ready to scrap this out. And look at the healing. It is unreal. 3 members attacking, and this Aatrox is just not going down. He kills off one, and he's looking for more. Fat Shield is unreal at the moment.
Just playing out of his mind. Played the early game really well. Had a little bit of a dip and has now turned it back on. Is in and amongst 3 members. Gets hooked to start off that fight. That death sentence usually does as its name says. Not in this case. Fat Shield more than happy to just stand in that one. Like you said, World Ender popped immediately. He is ready to go. With this Baron empowered minions heading in. 3 Baron empowered cannon minions.
No, dude, I feel bad. Has hit so many hooks. Such crucial plays. But they are just too strong. GG are marching forward. They're going to get another hook. That's going to be the grab. And under the tower they go. Nexus towers, we don't care, is what they're saying. Wantage, the last alive between the 2 towers. Starduster on the fountain. But they have to stay there for the rest of the game, or they will be falling down dead like the rest of the team. GG will close out this game in a very strong fashion. Guardian Gaming tell you, you know what it is.
GG's.
GG's. Guardian Gaming, man. I'm not gonna lie. Every time I watch Guardian Gaming, they seem to show up. Yeah. Maybe I'm just lucky. Maybe it's get the good Guardian Gaming games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the way that one was played out by multiple members was really impressive. Fat Shield and Bash played that early game incredibly well. Ericsson was just doing his job. You take the Karma, you are not our main carry, but you are going to absorb pressure and get around the map and keep people alive, and was able to do that multiple times. There are a couple of scenarios where it looked like perhaps Fat Shield had gone a little bit too far in. Massive shield out of the Karma, you're able to survive. I think there's also some criticism that can be leveled at K5, though. You pick yourself up a bot lane that should be able to get really aggressive, but on hit Varus with the Thresh, it's a lot more like a traditional bot lane that takes some time to ramp to scale. You need those 3 items to really come online, which just doesn't work against the Smolder, because the Smolder needed to be just put in the dust early, otherwise he will come online. The fact that the Smolder did not die a single time, Floops, no deaths, oh man, you can't let that happen.
Yeah, I think for me, K5, they did the thing of they had too many options, right? I think they need to go back, watch a GIF, right? Which is the one of the lady with the box. You know, that everything just fits in the square hole. You know, just go for the square hole. Just play for the square, right? Play your carry, have one option, play for the win on that one kind of ideology of like, okay, we're going to play for bot lane this game, and then do that, right? Maybe send someone in the top that can just kind of last it out. They had too many pieces that I feel like didn't fit together and were too mobile, which meant that they just couldn't execute on one plan. And I feel like on the flip side, Guardian Gaming, they kind of did that. They said, look, Ericsson's going to chill out. They will just play the game how they need to play. Our bot lane, they're going to take it slow as well. And we're just going to smash it in the top side. And they did exactly just that. It was a little bit of a strong look from them, and I have to say, Fat Shield on Aatrox, hey yo, might need a ban. Need a ban on this pick.
Might need a ban, which is unfortunate for K5 without their bans in the first round. It felt like there were a lot of prio picks that were just able to go through, and that's what happens, unfortunately, when you have to make late game substitutions. It just feels bad for K5, but what can you do? And I think massive congratulations to Garden Gaming getting themselves back to 500, 5-5 now. They're solidly in the look for playoffs.
What we can do is we're going to throw it to a break. When we come back, we'll actually be giving an interview from the man himself, the Aatrox Fat Shield. So do not miss anything. Hello, we are back, and let's not waste a single minute. Let's get into the interview. Let's bring them in. Fat Shield, welcome in to the stream. And obviously, you're feeling pretty good. We're gonna kick it off with the initial question, which is: you're 5-5. How are you kind of feeling in terms of playoffs prospects? Do you feel like you're going to make it easy, or are there still a little bit of ways to go?
Like at the start of the split for myself, I had at least that. Like making playoffs or not wasn't even a question. It was just like, are we gonna end one like first, second, or third? I don't know if that was like delusional of me, but I think makes sense if you look at our roster from the start. I think we had some meh drafts and some worse like late game transitions. So we lost a couple games that I think we should never lose. And right now we're like 5th or 6th and barely playoffs, but I think it will look way different after like the second half. I think we'll be further up, and yeah, I mean we're definitely making playoffs.
Okay.
Perfect. I mean, take us through that Aatrox game because it was huge, but you had a really interesting lane. I haven't seen Swain top in quite a while, but in that initial level 1, you managed to get a ton of health off of him. So take us through it from that moment on, what you're thinking, what you were looking to get done in that lane.
Yeah, so I got a pretty favorable matchup. I think they expected Karma to be top, and it's actually Swain Karma would have been the matchup we played in the first round robin again. I knew that my jungler was pathing into me, and I knew we didn't know where the Sinzao was going. But I was on the chance that he's going bot. I just want to let Swain push into me, and then at one point, like Viego's there and he can't really play. And Bosch did a really good flash play onto him to get first blood. The wave was still frozen, and game should have been over there if it wasn't for a couple of oopsies by me. But yeah, it was. I don't think it was like from draft. I don't think it was that playable for the Swain to begin with. Definitely not if his jungle is buffing away from him.
Okay, fair enough. I got another question kind of based on how you view your team. And I guess the big topic that we had in weeks 3 and 2, I guess, about a lot of teams was the teams were starting to find their identity, right? And they were starting to play a lot better. Like, I think UniQ is a perfect example of that, where they kind of started to form themselves and be a little bit more solid. Do you feel like you guys as a team have kind of found your identity of how you like to play League of Legends? Or would you say, in general, you guys have always been quite flexible?
Yeah, I would say we don't really have that much of an identity. I think like top lane in this meta is mostly an island, and I think it's good if you have push for like early grubs if those are your priority, if you want to play for them. But other than that, it's mostly about the other 4 dudes in the team. And then I think you either play for your bot lane or you play for mid jungle. I think we can do both, so I would not say that we have like a clear identity, but I think we can play like the best styles that are available right now. I think we can play them both. So
Okay.
So looking ahead, you've got games against G2 Hell and 42 Gaming coming up for you guys next week. G2 Hell obviously not having the best split so far, but 42 Gaming sat right at the same level that you guys are in terms of standings, a really important matchup. How are you feeling about the next week coming up for you guys? Do you think you can come out of it with a 2-0? And what do you think of these two opponents?
I think G2 has a very clear style that they play every game. So as long as we are mindful of that, I think we can draft quite well into it. And 42, and last time we actually lost against them, but I think our draft left some, question mark pings on our heads. I think we're better than 42, and if we draft like humans, I think the gameplay is gonna show that. So I think it should be a 2-0.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Do you have any final words that you want to say? Anyone you want to shout out before we let you go?
Yes, I want to apologize to my team for that atrocious Aatrox gameplay. I will do better next time.
Okay, my guy absolutely smashing in some of these team fights, almost 1v3ing at certain points, but apparently that wasn't good enough for you. So we'll hopefully see some more better performances from you, Fat Shield. We're going to let you go for now. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be looking into our second series. We are back once again. Does a builder stop a rich man? We'll find out. Does money talk? That's the question I'm asking, Bloxer. Is it Rich Gang? Is it the fourth wall? They're both looking pretty strong, but who is going to come out on top? 7-2, both their records. This is contention for first spot. What are your thoughts on these two teams?
Rich Gang have been on an absolute tear recently. 3-game win streak. They're just looking incredibly strong. And every time I watch this team play, I'm just so impressed by the way that they play around each other. It seems like every single member knows what's up, knows where they need to be playing at all times. And especially Broda in that jungle, just all over the map constantly. You said last game, you know, there's 3 lanes, you can't be in all of them. Somehow Broda seems to make it look like you can be, actually.
Oh, we are in draft quick. Right. Okay, so we're here straight off the bat. No, I do agree. And also, like, Free Fresh, right? There was talk about them being one of the best smolders in EU West, kind of in Europe. So I'm guessing it's banned, to be honest. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, I would imagine Fourth will probably want to get rid of that one. If you don't, you need to have a game plan into it. That's not how bans work.
Aphelios? Draven, I get.
Yeah.
Aphelios, surprising.
He's been floating on the very edges of the meta when, like, everything else is gone. You know, there's no chance for you to pick up any of the main ADCs, but that's really odd to ban it out so early on. Clearly a lot of respect right now being put into this bot lane. Pipey and Fabiox have been looking really good, but at the same time, to ban all of those out, I was hoping we'd see it. Unfortunately,
I was really hoping. I was like, okay, they got one more ban. It's probably going to be Karma. Makes a lot of sense. You know, get rid of that pick. Then we get the Smolder. But no, not today. It's not going to be Free Fresh's time to fly. Unless they decide to pick the Aurelion Soul, which we could potentially see. But Maokai going to be locked in there for Rich Gang straight away. On the flip side, the hover of the Azir quite early on.
Yeah, Azir, but he's pretty safe to be able to pick up for yourself this early on. Toxie has been picking up pretty regularly and having a good time on it. It's just a solid pick into the mid lane. You're never really going to lose lane too hard. And those towers actually have been really impactful all of a sudden. Usually I always thought those sun discs were a bit of a meh ability, but recently I've been seeing them take over lanes and kidding you. Yo, are we reading the same patch notes, guys? The Aphelios ban and the Jinx.
Oh, even more.
Okay.
This is not what I'm expecting. This draft is already coming correct.
Yo, let's go. Immediately lock yourself in an Azir and a Kog'Maw. Okay, we need some protection for these guys. Kog'Maw needs a lot to get him going. Maybe we see a Braum alongside the Kog'Maw. That's something that you can often get. Maybe we'll end up seeing more of those defensive pickups, a Milio, something like that. Rich Gang gonna be hovering towards this Aurelion Soul. That means that this game probably wants to go long for both of these teams, and it makes the early game that much more important. If the scaling is there for both compositions, then whoever wins that early game is massive. If that Maokai is in the jungle, that's not as strong as it was previously, so you don't have that same level of priority that a potential Xin Zhao could have, or a Viego, as we've seen before. You're only getting locked in too, man. These teams are just throwing haymakers.
We are going to be expecting a lot of fighting. This is a lot of late game as well. Like like 3 items in, now it's about to go down. Like I feel like this is some scary stuff looking in so far, and they're just doubling down. They've just said, you know what? We're just going to fight. That's it. That's what's going to happen. We're going to scrap. I'm expecting... I would have thought they locked in Luke here, to be honest. I thought they would go for something supportive. I thought they would give something for the Kog'Maw. Now they've opened up for the possibility of those to get banned away, but there's also the scope of, okay, do you maybe go for something like the Braum? Do you go for something like, I can't even think of some supports right now, but it's a sentiment of like, do you...
also work well.
Exactly, yeah. Renata, like, do you go for something that shields Kog'Maw? Do you go for something that stands in the way of Kog'Maw? Do you even go for essentially something engagey so you can kind of like hook in the Aurelion Soul? Because obviously that's going to be a problem. So there's a lot of scopes and angles that I want to know here. Obviously, we already see the Aatrox. Yone could go top, could go mid. I'm expecting the Aurelion Soul to go ADC. As we are seeing a few bands come through there. The Kled taken out. I think it makes sense, especially into the Aatrox. The brand also still very strong. Did get nerfed a little bit, but Broda, I feel like has shown a few times that the brand is a bit scary.
I wouldn't want to give that one over particularly, not into this composition as well. Sure, it's pretty immobile, but at the same time, if you manage to land one of those big ults that manages to spread onto everybody, yeah, you just end up losing those team fights too. Supports being banned. I think that's one of the best bits about having the Kog'Maw for yourself, is you kind of force the enemy into banning at least the Lulu. Milio now is kind of that other pick. He didn't have a second pick that was best alongside him. Now you do. You ban out the Milio, ban out the Lulu, take the Braum. That's the way that this draft was almost always going to go. So I like the Brom with the Kog'Maw. Obviously, I think that the Milio Lulu would have been better. That's why Rich Gang agreeing have taken those ones out. So what do you want to pick up in the bot lane to play alongside this? You've got to take your full bot lane right now. And there's not really been any particular bans in the second half towards this bot lane.
I also like that they've left jungle to R5 because I don't think I've seen jungle R5 for ages.
Yeah.
Like, this is like one of the first R5 jungles in a long time. But we're going to get Nocturne coming out from Rich Gang. It's a solid pick. It's strong. We've seen Broder play it before, I believe. Or at least we've definitely seen a lot of Nocturne in general. I feel like every jungler can play Nocturne. And it's going to be able to do a lot post 6.
He's one of the more basic junglers that we have. Again, you need to get things going early on. If not, you're not completely useless. That paranoia is huge. You're also going to see... Wow. You're going to see the Malphite as well. So that should be Malphite top, Nocturne jungle. You've got either the Yone or the Aurelion Sol, honestly, into the mid lane.
What is happening?
That's a Skarner.
What is going on?
That's actually a Skarner.
Fourth wall are 400 IQing this right now. They have gone for a different comp. Like, I feel like I need to go get some patch notes open because, like, they're picking stuff I've not seen in a long time.
I'm always like, when top teams clash, they're like, no, our style is better. No, our style is better. We're just going to play our way, and one of us, oops, the other one was better. Then you see adaptation the next time the Titans clash. But this time, feels like these guys are like, nah, we're immediately going to just pull out all the stops and have the craziest compositions we possibly have. Fruity Fresh is going to pick up the Aurelion Sol. You made a joke about that when he didn't get the smolder in the ban phase, and then it came true. I love that, because honestly, the Aurelion Sol bot lane into this Kog'Maw, I think you have a really good matchup. You can bully this Kog'Maw out quite heavily. You just have to be careful to not step up too far, because the Brom can catch you out pretty effectively. But with the Maokai saplings as well, keeping the bush a place you don't really want to be standing, there could be a lot of pressure onto this Kog'Maw, which is exactly what you want. Plus, you don't get outscaled. Kog'Maw often outscales once you get into that mid-late game. That doesn't happen. Once you have the Skies Descend on the Aurelion Sol, those team fights are so tricky.
And I'm also thinking, okay, even if you did get outscaled, you have a Malphite, and a Nocturne,
and that's
and a Yone.
Like,
it's like, that's a lot. Like, if you're Kog'Maw right now, it's a bit like, okay, guys, they're going to attack me.
Yeah.
I will die, but you need to finish off the fight. That's kind of the energy that I feel like we're going into this, because I don't really understand how you avoid that stuff. Like, you know, in team fight stuff, unless they kind of hide Kog'Maw in a bush, you know, they leave him, they go into the team fight, then they turn up a little bit later. I don't see how the Kog'Maws are getting focused here. I think there is definitely a potential where we maybe see some side laning, but we maybe see the Aatrox kind of try and pull people across, because I feel like straight up 5v5, Rich Gang look so scary.
What is it the doctor says? Dead on my screen? Yeah, I think that the Kog'Maw might be dead on my screen already when it comes to these team fights. But I mean, with Doctor in mind, that's a Skarner. That's a straight up Skarner pick. Again, I've not seen that in forever. I feel like we're having a throwback stream all of a sudden, getting to see patches from gone eras, and I can't wait to see what a Skarner does in the current patch.
Let's just find out. Let's get into the game. Let's see what happens. We're pressing the button right now to go into game. And here we go. Second game of the day. Final one for us to cast. It's an unusual one, to say the least. I might even have to quickly look up some guides on Skarner, because genuinely, this is just not what I'm expecting.
No, there's picks that you're like, it happens if somebody's a one-trick on it. There's picks if, like, this is nothing left. But there were other options. Xin Zhao just slid his way through a ban phase, which he's been one of those priority picks for ages. But no, Warrior going to go straight onto this Skarner. And so what you need to do with this champion is kind of the same as what you need to do as Broder, which is these first ultimates, once we hit the level 6, 7... needs to be pretty much perfect. Broder, especially with the Nocturne, if you don't get a couple of good ults off that blow at least flashes, if not get kills, you fall quite far behind. But the same can be said for the Skarner. You need to be using this ult as effectively as possible to get your lanes ahead. But you're also going to be tankier than a potential Nocturne. So there's a lot of extra priority you can give to your team just through the way that Skarner works. And of course, these spires to play around are going to be huge. These objectives all of a sudden have an extra mini-boss that you have to go collect first.
I'm still just in shock. I'll be honest, because I'm now thinking about the game, right? And I'm now like, okay, we've got a few champions that we're not used to seeing. how are you going to navigate this one, right? If you're warrior, I feel like bot lane seems to be the right place to go, but then we've already talked about the dead on screen of the Cogmore, right? We've already talked about how there could just be a little, press R, two people press R.
Yeah.
So do you maybe go for the Aatrox? Right now, obviously starting on the top side, so is Broda. It looks like bot lane is going to be the play, and an aggressive start from Pipey here. Going to get a little bit of damage down onto Fruits Fresh to make sure that, you know what, we're not just scaling, we're here to play as well.
Pre-level 2, you can step up in the situation as Pipey and just try to lay a little bit down. This battle to get to level 2 is going to be really important. Looks like you are winning it right now as Pipey is just going to be able to continue to step up and deal the damage. Greg is having a terrible time right now. Once you get that level 2, things do flip around a little bit, but still, getting that early pressure down when you're at your strongest, winning that battle to the level 2, really effective early plays out of Pipey and Fabiox here.
Yeah, and so Victor, for me, has to be a big character in fourth wall in this game, right? I think that if you're playing this one out and this Aatrox isn't able to kind of stand up to something like the Malphite, then you're going to really limit your options. Also, Sumi on that Yone too, going to be quite an interesting one. There's just a lot of possibilities from these comps, and I talked about it right in the last game where I said, okay, maybe you want to just go for one way to win the game. Both these teams have just said, nah, all lanes could win, all lanes could carry.
Yeah, you can just play through any single one of these, which is such an interesting way of going about the game. I think it relieves a lot of pressure off of your jungler. I like that style. I think I've seen far too many compositions recently where the jungler has to get ahead, has to be the carry, and the lanes don't have their individual priority. They don't have that volatility to where your lanes can win by themselves. It's all on the jungler, and you have to be everywhere all at once, and as good as Broda is at that, it is still a lot of pressure to put onto one person.
Sumi getting a pretty nice trade onto Toxie there. We'll have to zoom back to the body. As Pipey's still keeping up this damage, but Fruity Fresh starting to look that little bit scarier than they did at level 1. And we're seeing those junglers rotate around. Now, Broda has actually gone back up to the top side. And interestingly, Sir Victor may have overstepped here. If getting caught out by Stumpy, gonna have to flash immediately, and pressure already has been exerted, but we're talking about pressure on the bot side. Once again, Greg gonna have to run for those hills. We'll get safely under tower, but that threat of death is looming.
Yeah, that is the combo that you just have to keep running right now. As Pipey, you step up and you keep your Brom right in front of you with that Unbreakable up, and you just have to walk away. You don't get to turn back as Rich Gang's bot lane until that Unbreakable falls. That's the point at which Fruity Fresh can turn around, start breathing on them, and trying to lay down that damage. So keep that combo going as fourth wall's bot lane. See what you can get done. There is a Ignite onto Fabiox as well, so if you get them low enough, there is a potential for an all-in. And getting killed early by a Cogmore is terrible, although Sir Victor, so much damage, doesn't have the flash.
Stumpy low on mana though, so I don't know if they're going to have enough. A little bit more damage will come out of the cheese wheel, and they will force the Aatrox away. Slightly ahead on CS, and if they do have TP, which they do, they should be able to collect this wave, so all things will be good for the Aatrox. The other thing that we haven't really talked about is actually the impact of the Skarner, right? We have to talk about the Impale, because it is such a problematic ultimate to deal with, right? Especially if you are someone that is trying to run away from harm, right? If you are someone like Fruity Fresh or Sumi, it could absolutely shatter anything that you're able to do. So there are a lot of layers to these team fights, and I'm very excited to get into them. But before that, we have to have the early game. And we're seeing the grubs being taken by the side of Broda. It looks like Warriors decided, okay, you know what? For that, we're just going to trade the Drake.
It's the age-old, well, I guess season-old at this point, trade, where you just say, hey, we can't fight right now up into this top side. Our Aatrox is getting bullied around, so there's no real point to try to go in this situation. Just pick yourself up the Drake. 3 grubs is going to be great. Whenever you do get those first 3 grubs, though, you do then have just a lot of leeway where you can say, oh, we'll just trade the next set over to the other team. It doesn't matter. 3 for 3 is fine. It's an even state. You would love to get the 6, and that's where fourth will have to be careful. You cannot just allow those 6 to go straight over. Warrior will have to try to get something done in the next couple of minutes when that next set of grubs spawns, and that means you're going to need Sir Victor in a healthy position to be able to help you out, not constantly getting chunked down. Plus, we're getting to that point 6 minutes in where level 6s are going to be available soon for Broda and Warrior. And especially for Broda, there's a lot of pressure on that first ultimate as a Nocturne. What do you get out of it? It really sets you up for the rest of the game. Do you get a kill? Can you turn that into a lot of gold that you can spend on getting yourself ahead of the curve? Because falling behind that curve as a Nocturne
they're getting it
puts
now.
you in a terrible position. Yeah,
they're getting level 6 right now, and bot lane's pushed up. They've already moved the Yone down, but I think the fourth will know just enough
They're gonna go.
Call here, although here we go. Paranoia going to be utilized straight onto the Cogmore. Can they do enough damage? Not going to be so. Flash used by Pipey. Greg almost taken down themselves, but we'll be able to get out safely.
Not getting that first kill feels really bad, although Pipey is going to try to stick around, going to be able to pick up this entire minion wave as well, so huge plays out of Fourth Wall's bot lane to stay alive, and it just wasn't the quite right amount of damage. It felt like Fourth Wall had a little bit of a sixth sense in that situation, knew that something was up, the level 6 should be coming for Broda, and it was a little telegraphed, let's say, from Greg, just sprinting at them.
Yeah, I think Sumi also starting to walk down as well. Maybe gave them that inclination. It's like, okay, you know what? We're not fully safe here, so let's just back away. Sumi, interesting that they decided to pop the Spirit there. As right now, Stumpy taking quite a bit of damage from Sir Victor. Needs to be a little bit cautious. The World Ender is available. So maybe in a bit of a scary situation as Warrior, now joined by Fabiox, is going to be able to catch Brooder out on this Skull Crab. Obviously ultimate not available, but here comes 4 members. Sumi gonna jump straight in after the Unstoppable Force. That's 1, that's 2, and that is Rich Gang on the board.
And that's the combo that we were looking for out of Rich Gang. You just managed to land the Unstoppable onto 2 members. Sumi Cubs flying through with that Fate Sealed. And absolutely they were picking up those couple of kills. Unfortunately, the Grubs have not yet spawned, so Rich Gang won't be able to pick them up for themselves. Still, you're in a happy position. Sir Victor chasing onto Stumpy, but Broda is there, just going to keep his top laner alive. I feel like Stumpy has spent the last 5 minutes at least on about 20% HP and just really hasn't minded. Is just trusting in the tankiness that this 2 Ruby Crystalled up Malphite has. Is going to get back to base, gets a ton more armor and health as well, so it's sat in a really good position. And unlike that Aatrox performance that we saw in the last game out of Fat Shield, this Victor Aatrox just hasn't really got things going. Decent CS lead though, must be said.
Stumpy, he gets a shield, he's using the Shamrock, maybe he's just a little bit lucky, you know? I feel like they're just playing this one out, and I will say Sir Victor obviously having a harder time, right? I think that Malphite is way more difficult to kill than maybe like a Swain or a lot of other top laners, so it's a bit of a tough time to kind of get that scaling. And also in terms of jungle support, haven't really seen too much out of Warrior for any lane particularly, so I am wondering where this Skarner will start to impact. Right now has level 6, really dangerous ultimate, but when are they going to get usage out of it?
Hey, when do you manage to get Warrior into a backline? I mean, you said that Sumi and Fruity Fresh could be in a pretty bad spot, but I kind of only think Fruity Fresh is the one that you're looking at. You need to kill this Space Dragon. He's incredibly strong once that Sky's Descend is in. Just does so much damage off of every single ability, but is also the only one that doesn't really have a way to get away. You do still have the Astral Flight, so you have to be careful to not try to run at him at the exact moment he can just get away. But if you can manage to land on Fruity Fresh, awesome. But all of the other targets are not necessarily going to be the best idea. You've got the Spell Shield onto Broda, Sumi can jump away before you actually get there. Yeah, it's just going to be a 3-for-3 though onto these Grubs.
It's Year of the Dragon this year.
Yeah, it is.
Where
That's
was
probably
the
why we
Aurelion
got a
Soul skin?
Smolder, right? That's true. Not getting an ASOL skin is devastating, although we did get a whole new dragon, so maybe that's it.
I don't know, man. I feel like that's a little bit sad. I just thought about that because I was looking at Aurelion Soul, right? And he just kind of reminded me of, you know, like Commander 3. But hold on one second, because here we go. Fight in the jungle. Warrior trying to overextend and take the red buff of Rich Gang, but gonna pay for it with their life. And Broda just picking up another freebie, another ultimate that leads into a big kill. 201. This Nocturne is starting to become a bit of a problem.
Absolutely has, and this is the way that the composition works from Rich Gang. You're able to collapse so effectively. The Astral Flight is good for other things than just getting away from a Skarner. It's good for getting into team fights like that. Same thing that Broda can do, same thing that Stumpy can do with all of those ultimates. And if you can collapse all of these members, the second you step out of position as Fourth Wall, you're just going to get jumped. And it means that Fourth Wall, despite the fact that they got that initial Drake, aren't going to be able to trade back and get themselves another one right now. Are going to go onto it at this point. I do worry a little bit. Nah, it looks like Broda's just going to head to the top lane. So they're going to pick up a second Drake, but that kind of feels like the only good things that have happened from this early game. The pressure was so great in the early from Pipey and Fabiox, but, you know, once you get that couple of levels, you can't keep doing that to the to the Aurelion Soul.
Yeah, but things you can't do to the Aatrox either is walk up.
Yeah.
Sir Victor is able to land a lot of damage, but here's Stumpy going back in with the Unstoppable Force, and now Broda on the top side. The duo gonna come through, and Stumpy just playing it exactly how he should. He's setting up, baiting in Sir Victor, and in comes the jungler for a free kill.
said that these were two of the top teams, and standings-wise, absolutely they are. But right now, in terms of just playing this game out, it looks like we have got a definitive lead for Rich Gang. Like, they are so far ahead. 3,000 gold in the lead. That jungle is a massive gap, and I'm always worried about junglers that have to get ahead early. Hang on, Warrior, gonna go for a dive here.
Oh, do we get it? Is this the first ultimate from Warrior? Gonna come through, but the wave is gone!
Wait,
the wave is gone!
it's gone!
And now so is the jungler! They are dead!
Two kills!
Is falling as well! The turret shot comes in! And Pipey, the last alive, fortunately able to get enough distance away from Greg, but Fruity Fresh just gifted kills!
I mean, dang, that was really nice out of Greg. Immediately pops that ult, gets that Nature's Grasp coming on through, and then just jumps on top of Warrior the whole time. That Nature's Grasp also hitting onto the minion wave meant that it died quicker, and then you're able to just turn and burn. I don't know, Warrior didn't manage to pop the ultimate at all because he was dead. CC locked the entire time. Well played out of Greg. Gets more kills into his Aurelian Soul, and this early game just goes from bad to an absolute horror for Fourth Wall.
Yeah, we talked about late game being when people come online. Oh, this is an easy kill. They got it. So Victor is trying to turn it around, but they don't have the World Ender. They don't have the healing, and Broda has the damage. They're going to be able to pick that one up. We talked about the late game scaling. We talked about how these two teams could clash and how the late game would be so scary for both sides. Well, at the moment, only one team seems to be getting to the late game. So right now, Fourth Wall, they need to start to slow things down. They need to find a way to turn it back around. And Sumi taking those trades could be a way in.
Yeah, it's only an experimental hex plate and a phage right now on Broda, and he's doing all of this damage. I mean, it's absolutely insane what is happening. And that's why I was highlighting... Oh, hang on, Greg. You're going to have to go in or just run away right here.
Ooh, but here it comes, though.
No.
Aurelian Soul burning through Fabio. The TP, Yasumi, the fate sealed, the knock-up is there. The TP is going to be joined back by Toxie, but it's a little bit too late unless they can re-engage, and they can't get into range. So it's just another play. Rich Gang, once again, picking up something for 0, 8, and 0 on the scoreboard, Luxor.
I just had a moment where a Seer popped onto my screen, and I suddenly remembered that Toxie was in this game. Like, we have not seen Toxie get involved at all. So that's 0-0-0, but doesn't have a CS lead over Sumi, who has been everywhere, picking up kills and getting involved in skirmishes left and right. Speaking of skirmishes, it looks like we're going to have another one around this Herald.
Ooh, Toxie getting involved, but gets immediately removed from the game. That's not the impact we wanted to see. But now the 3 versus 3. Here's the World Ender. Can the Aatrox finally make something happen? Greg joins the fray, and so will Pipey. But again, a little bit too late for Fourth Wall. They come in, and it's not their time. And Sumi now absolutely decimates the Cogmore. Another kill. That's double figures for 0 to Rich Gang. And I'm pretty sure that's Herald as well.
I mean, jeez, this game is just an absolute stomp right now. Rich Gang got themselves such an early lead through a couple of brilliant ultimates out of Broda, Stumpy, and Sumi, and they have just turned it into a lead across the board. But the bot lane that was getting pushed in, bullied around, they never gave over that kill. There was always the threat, but they didn't step up too far. They didn't give over that kill, and they kept themselves in this game until you managed to get your Aatrox, your Aurelian Soul online. And from that moment onwards, it felt like Fourth Wall just haven't had the ability to get involved in any of these lanes. Every time that they try to get a play going, Rich Gang are just there quicker. They're rotating their members through just at such an accelerated pace. They're now at a 7,000 gold lead. Pretty much 8,000 as Pipey.
Oh no, the stun, the singularity, the breath, it's just too much. Pretty Fresh gonna be able to get that kill, but can they turn it around? No, they can't. They can't do it because Astral Flight just takes them away. And once again, the dragon is victorious. And I gotta say this, right? We've not even talked about it yet, but they've also got 6 Grub Mites. Yes, they gave over 2 Drakes, but the pace that they can take down these towers as well is crazy. They're starting to open up the map. They're starting to set up for Dragon, and I feel like this is the one that they finally will fight for.
Something crucial about those first 2 Drakes that were picked up by Fourth Wall is that it wasn't that Rich Gang fought for them, lost fights, and then you get the Drake. They just were like, nah, we don't need that right now, and it was the correct decision. They could get plays going on the rest of the map. If you know that Drakes are not going to help you, if you know that you can get things going elsewhere, do that. Perfect. Hang on, how many How many stacks did they get? They must have gotten 5 grubs as Rich Gang.
They got 6.
Did they get all 6? Yeah, they did end up getting all 6. I thought that it had ended up being 3 for 3, but I'm remembering the last game because this one has been so crazy, clearly. I've lost a little bit of track, so Rich Gang perfectly happy to make that decision because you have a composition that can 1-3-1. You want as many people onto towers as possible, as this, it might end up being a dead Azir.
It could be indeed, and it's a trade for tier 1 for tier 2. We're going to see the fate still come through. There we go, back to the body. Toxie's going to die, and that tower will also be getting crumbled. Again, you could say it's tower for tower, but it's not going to be so. As Stumpy, why did you TP there? Hello? 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 Any Whoa, Stumpy, you're ahead. Don't start throwing, man.
Stumpy was bored, was having far too easy of a game, decides to gift over a kill, let's say, to the opposition. We are going to see that mid lane tier 2 for the inhibitor turret goes down as well. You get another tower in the bot lane too, and you just get to walk this one out. Jay.
I'm not speculating, maybe it was the ultimate bait, right? They TP top, stopped the recalls of 3 members, which allowed them to get the tier 2 and tier 3 in the mid.
You know what? I can see that because everybody was too busy chasing around a Malphite, which takes a while to kill, and then you lose a ton of gold. I mean, genuinely, I wouldn't say it's a good death, but I'm not going to say that you lose anything particularly. Give over 1 kill, and the kill does go over to the Cogmore Pipe. He does get something. It's nice for 4th wall, but it's going to take a Herculean effort for them to get themselves back into this game. Luckily, they have good scaling. I mean, once Cogmore gets online, awesome, but you're quite far off of that point, whereas your opposing ABC, obviously not. Hang on.
Oh, no. The confidence is growing. Broda able just to be able to pick up that kill. A little bit of extra damage from Free Fresh sent in there, and they're going to find 2. It's only 18 minutes, by the way, in the game, as we're going to see more towers being threatened. Baron hasn't even spawned yet, and 4th wall are looking in a very bad spot, right? 2 items on 3 different carries, jungle, mid, and ADC, and on the flip side, you've only got 1 each.
That's just a Knight's Helm on Warrior. I mean, that feels terrible. I'm slightly worried for the Azir's life right now. It does look like he's going to be able to back off. This tier 2 turret getting shredded through by Sumi. Going to take a little bit, but with all of that help... Oh, they're just going to go for this? Okay.
They got 3 members. They might as well. Like, they're ahead by quite a bit, and I think the Broda might be having the paranoia up soon as well. So walking over there could join the fight pretty quick, but they are going to have 4 members of 4th wall. The only one not there was Warrior, which means the Stumpy quite happy just to push on the bot side.
Just going to keep pushing this lane through. And a genuine question here, Jay. Have you seen Warrior ult?
No.
I don't think I've seen him press his ult a single time, and I think that's simply because he hasn't gotten close enough to anybody to be able to do so. We were so excited by this last pick Skarner, but this might not be the masterclass in Skarner that we were hoping for.
I was expecting invades, I was expecting early ganks. Admittedly, I don't play Skarner. I don't even play jungle anymore. But, I don't know, it's not what I was expecting from the final pick Skarner. I was expecting a big wow factor.
There's, maybe a lack of wow factor, let's say. It's been a wow factor, though, from Broda. Like, this is the way you play Nocturne. You have to get ahead early, and that first gank, sure, it didn't result in a kill, but it blew the flash and the cleanse out of Pipey, and you're then able to just find a ton more fights. I want to see another one of those big wombo combos where Stumpy lands an ult and Sumi does too, because those are so good, and you add a Sky's Descent into the mix with that one, that's going to be a satisfying team fight for everybody but 4th wall and their fans.
And I do wonder, Baron is up, they're very strong. Is this where Rich Gang could throw? You know, is this where the game might turn into 4th wall's favor? We'll have to find out, because they are starting the Baron, and we're going to see right now, right here, if that is possible, as we see Greg just holding the line. Sumi going to go a little bit aggressive, get a bit of chip damage, and the Baron is going down pretty quick. It's going to go already. That has been Nash started, and here we go into the mix. Skies descend, and it's going to be 4th wall falling. Sumi with their damage on the Savictor, going to have to flash away. Greg chasing down Warrior relentlessly, who is still not ulted. The dragon is burning, the triple kill is there, and we might be seeing the end of the game.
This is gonna be game. Baron empowered minions pouring down through the mid lane. You've got just 10 seconds until Pipey's back up. Death timers are not
Oh,
that
the
long.
minions,
Look at them!
man!
So many little Kevins all running their way in. What an impressive performance out of Rich Gang.
Yeah, they're going to go for the end here. Pipey's going to step out, but look at the damage. Stumpy doesn't care. Flashes forward. The Aurelian Soul just starts to burn more as we're going to go for a flashback from 10 minutes earlier because the game is won. Fourth wall dethroned. Rich Gang take the top spot.
You know, we've got time quotas that we have to hit. The game was a little fast. What if we just watch it again from halfway through? Actually, watching it from halfway through would still make that an average length game. That ended at, like, what was it, 22, 23 minutes?
Yeah, it was fast.
Insane.
It was very fast.
I'm trying to think of the word for that. I feel like an obliteration is the correct way of putting that one. And in case people are just, you know, tuning in to watch the game, doesn't really understand the stakes right here, that was for first place. That was our 7-2 teams. They were tied in the standings, and Rich Gang just demolished, obliterated,
I feel like
destroyed them.
That last fight could be played back, and they could like either play like Skyfall, or like the Avatar fight music where everyone's kind of like dying, you know, and like as the star lands for fourth wall. Because I'm not gonna lie, Rich Gang just smashed it up. Like there was no good side of that last fight. Right now, obviously, I will say this: fourth wall, they tested out some new picks. Maybe they had some things they wanted to cook up. Do I think you should do against the first place team? No, but at the end of the day, I'm not gonna tell you how to play League of Legends. You know, they could have maybe had a plan. It maybe just went a little bit wrong early, and then Rich Gang just took it away. They've done that before. They are known for being a strong team. But this was the fastest game of the split. And Rich Gang said, you know what? We are number one. Do not forget.
And the now second fastest game ever was a game between K5 and G2 Hell. Some of the bottom place teams, which is usually where you see the absolute fastest games. It's either bottom place teams or a top place team versus the worst ranked team. You know, you're just better. I would not have looked at these two teams and gone, yeah, Rich Gang are just better. I'd say overall they looked like they were on the stronger form. They were coming in on a 3-game win streak. All of that highbrow analysis, but I wouldn't have just put it down to a straight up hands and mental death. But in that game, that's what it felt like. The way that they took apart fourth wall and the way that the game plan was executed, being bot lane, the second that your level 6 is ticked for Brawler, and knowing that you press that immediately. Sure, you don't get that kill, but it's still a mindset thing where you know you're going to use that ultimate immediately as the Nocturne. Getting the collapse topside to get yourself that 6 grubs as well that you then use to take the game down in 22 minutes. The way that they played was impressive from start to finish.
Yeah.
Other than straight up inting from Stumpy. That was a death that didn't need to happen.
Yeah, that was definitely a bit of a questionable one. But at the end of the day, that is our second game. We're going to go to a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by a player from the side of Rich Gang for an interview. We'll let you know who that is when you come back after the break. And we are back once again, and we are joined by Sumi from Rich Gangs. Let's bring them in. Sumi, hello, how are you? Hope you're doing pretty good after that win. I've got to ask you to kick it all off. Was that how you expected the game to go?
Yeah. I think we were extremely confident going in. Our last match against them was very confident to win also, so yeah, of course. And yeah, we kind of expect to win hard, but not this hard, of course.
I mean, what a completely dominant win. That draft phase, though, it was completely insane from our perspective. That was not what we were expecting. That last pick Skarner, did you think that was coming through? Did you expect the draft to go the way that it did at all? How much of that was pre-planned? Obviously, don't give away all of your draft insights, but, you
Of
know.
course. So I think out of all the teams in the league, Forfall is actually the most predictable out of all of them draft-wise. And they did exactly what we predicted. Pick for pick. We knew exactly what kind of champions they were going to pick and when they were going to pick it. And it all worked out.
Wow.
Okay. Read them like a book. Now, talking about reading them like a book, 400 IQ, kind of knowing your opponent as well as your teammates, I got to ask you, right? Stumpy TP'd to the top lane tower just as he was about to die, then got attacked by 3 members while you guys took the mid tier 2 and tier 3. Was that planned? Was that in? Was that agreed? What was happening there?
No, it was just int, and he said in team chat after the game directly, sorry for int team, and so he knew exactly what was going on.
Oh, perfect. So looking forwards a little bit, you've got matches against 2 pretty top team. Blue White's the only other team that was sat at that 7-2 bubble with you guys, as well as Ruza Esports. Obviously, Blue White's another top team. Do you expect to dismantle these 2 opponents in the same way you just dismantled Fourth Wall? Or do you think, if you're saying that Fourth Wall's very predictable in draft, do you think these 2 are going to be slightly harder opponents?
I think both Blue Whites and Rose are a bit harder for us to beat than Forfall. Although I do still believe we have the edge to beat them, as we both already beat. We beat both already once before, so we did show that, and I think we can do it again.
Perfect. And I do have one final quick question. What's the name of the cat?
Navi.
Oh.
Yeah, they are very cute. Very cute indeed. But I got to ask you, it's the final one. So, sorry, not ask you. It's the final point. Do you have any final words that you want to say before we let you go? Anyone you want to shout out?
No, I'm just thankful. My team is working great together, and we're doing great in the league, and I think we're gonna win. And yeah, I'm just grateful for having such a great team.
Okay, great, wholesome. I like it. Very nice. Thank you very much, Sumi, for coming to chat to us. Obviously, shout out to your cat as well. They're having a bit of a nap now. They can just rest in peace. But that is going to be all from us. So we're going to bring it just to us, just me and you, Bloxer. 2 good games, 2 bangers, one very quick, one a little bit more turbulent. Yeah. What's your feelings? Any final Div 2 words?
I'm
promises, prepositions?
I'm worried for the competitiveness of the top end of Div 2 because Rich Gang, they started out, not shaky. Calling it shaky would be wrong, but they had a couple of losses sprinkled in, but it feels like they've all of a sudden clicked to just that higher gear. They were already working well together, and now that's terrifying. However, there is an absolute mess in the middle of the standings right now where teams are just all over the bubble for playoffs. So maybe the top of the standings is just going to be Rich Gang taking away from it until we get to playoffs. But there is definitely still incredibly important matches yet to be played for that playoff spots, and I think that's so interesting to watch.
It will be indeed, but that is going to be all from us tonight. We're going to say goodbye to the stream. We'll catch you guys next week, Tuesday. I believe there'll be more games in it. And here we go. That is going to be all from us. So good night. Shout out to our producer, Zoe, as always, for keeping us live on the stream. And that's going to be it. Good night.